All right. Well, thank you for for attending our webinar on GoAnywhere today. My name is Bob Libby, and I am the Chief Architect here. I spent a lot of my time working on our GoAnywhere products for helping companies to automate and secure their file transfers. I'm also joined by Stephen Lee. He's our Senior Software Engineer here. He does a lot of work on our GoAnywhere products, and he's actually going to be performing the live demonstration of our GoAnywhere products somewhere in the middle of this webinar. So we have a good agenda today. We just want to make sure you have a good feel on what we have to offer. So we're going to give you an overview of our GoAnywhere product line. We're then going to talk about how you can manage and automate and secure your file transfers with GoAnywhere Director. We're going to show you how you can centrally administer all your file movement within your organization, both with your internal servers and your external partners. We're going to show you how you can set up file transfers quickly using our wizards and other screens and so on within the product. We'll talk about the different secure file transfer protocols that we support, including SFTP, FTPS, and PGP, and how you can use those based on your trading partners' requirements and the types of security that your data needs. We'll show you then how to automate those transfers either through our scheduler or how you'll be able to call out those file transfers from your own applications while still maintaining a central logging and monitoring system within our product. And so that's going to lead us into the audit trails. Steve's going to show you how you can report on that data, how you can share that with your auditors, how you can get alerts when problems arise so you immediately are notified so you can take care of the problems right away. So we're going to spend a good amount of time on GoAnywhere Director, and then we're going to move over to our GoAnywhere Services product, which will allow your trading partners to connect back to you to drop off files or pull files down. So we're going to show you how you can set up trading partners, how they could use our web client to just upload and download files right through their browser, which is a really nice, simple to use interface. How you can set up triggers so you can automatically monitor for files as they come in to your company. And then we'll also show you a gateway feature where you can actually keep your files out of your DMZ, keep them in your private network where they're safe, as well as keeping those inbound ports closed. So we'll show you how you can do that with our gateway product. And then finally, we're going to show you how you can, a new feature that's coming out called Secure Mail, where your end users could send out ad hoc file transfers to external folks or even internally and be able to receive those through a secure web connection. So again, if you have any questions along the way, feel free to ask those through your control panel and address them as we have time. All right, so just a quick overview of the products. I had kind of mentioned GoAnywhere Director is what you would use to automate your file transfers. It connects out to just about any type of system, be it an internal system or external trading partner, and securely exchanges data using standard protocols. So your trading partners do not need GoAnywhere on their side as long as they've implemented one of the protocols that we have within the product. And then GoAnywhere Services, again, is for when you need your partners to connect up to you to exchange files, and it supports the popular file transfer protocols. And then, again, the gateway is going to provide that extra layer of security out in your DMZ. And this to show you all three products working together. For instance, maybe you have a trading partner that needs to drop off some files onto your system. Well, what you can do is you can place the GoAnywhere Gateway product in your DMZ, and they'll connect up to that product, thinking that they're maybe connecting up to an SFTP server or an HTTPS server, but really what the gateway is doing is it's passing that notification up through a proprietary control channel that would have been pre-established, requiring no inbound ports to be open, which the auditors and security folks really appreciate. And this is up here in your private network is where the secure server, like a SFTP server or an HTTPS server, will actually be living right on your private network. So your partners, again, they're thinking they're connecting directly up, but they're really passing through this reverse proxy sitting in your DMZ. Again, no files out in your DMZ. You keep all your files in your private network where it's safe. And you can also use the gateway for any types of transfers where you need to send out files to partners. You could do that through GoAnywhere Director, or if you need to go out and pick up files from your partners, that's another good use for GoAnywhere Director. So that shows the three products working together in a cohesive managed file transfer situation. All right, so let's talk about GoAnywhere Director. We're going to spend a few minutes on this product to start off with. As I mentioned, it can connect up to just about any type of server or data source using standard protocols. So, for instance, you can connect to FTP sites, secure FTP sites, either internal or external systems. You could also dynamically connect out to other file systems within your network. Now, you may already have a lot of network shares defined or mappings that we certainly can connect up to those, but you can additionally set up additional network connections using the SMB protocol right through a product. So you can use those connections to drop off files on other servers or pull files from those systems as part of an overall transfer process. Another use of GoAnywhere Director, which a lot of our customers take advantage of, is it can also connect out to really just about any database system you may have on your network, be it a DB2 system or Oracle, SQL Server, and so on. We use standard JDBC protocol to connect out to those database servers, which will allow you to select data from those database tables. It'll let you push data into those tables. Really, you'll be able to run any kinds of SQL that you'd like as part of the overall transfer process, as long as you have the proper rights to those tables and so on. That's kind of neat because you could actually take that data and have us convert that for you into the various formats, which I'll talk about before you send it out to your partner. That's a good use for the product. Websites, if you need to connect out to servers through HTTP or HTTPS or AS2 or web services, we support those types of connectors for pushing out files and pulling files back, as well as email servers. So you can use GoAnywhere to connect out, send files out to your partners as email attachments with custom messages. And you can do that all on a scheduled batch basis, which is great for doing a lot of different email type functions that you need to do on a day-to-day basis. So the product loads on one of your systems on your network, and you can put it on a Windows server, Linux box, Unix, Solaris, IBM i-Series. It runs on a lot of different operating systems. Once you get it installed, you'll then be able to connect right up to GoAnywhere Director using your browser. So all of your administration is done through, you can choose Internet Explorer, Firefox, Safari, Chrome. You connect up. That's where you do all your setup work to your different systems you want to communicate with. From there, you'll be able to define the transfers and watch the audit logs, do any kinds of alert settings that you need to do to notify folks when problems arise, view the audit logs, and so on. So that's really nice. That's something that a lot of customers really appreciate, is how easy it is to access Director. You can even access it through your smartphone if you have a browser on there to jump into the product to look at logs and so on. Now, we do have a built-in scheduler in the product, which you could use to kick off transfers, but you could also call out transfers within the product. We call them projects. You'll be able to do that from your own applications. We have APIs and commands that you can embed in. Let's say you're on an IBM iSeries, you could put it in CL and RPG programs. Let's say you're on Windows, we have BAT commands that you can use to initiate transfers. Again, we call them projects. Linux, Unix, you name it, we let you call out these APIs from these various platforms so you can have the central solution serving your file transfer needs, but still be able to call it out from a lot of different systems within your network. All right, let's talk about securing your transmissions. So a lot of customers that we deal with have to comply with the various regulations out there, be it FIPS, PCI, HIPAA, SOX, and so on. And so it's important that we have a lot of different secure protocols available to them, especially based on a lot of different trading partners, various needs out there. You may have one trading partner that needs you to connect up through SFTP, or a different one through HTTPS or FTPS. So you'll be able to pick and choose based on the trading partner's requirements and, of course, the sensitivity of the data, what protocols that you would like to use for that particular transmission. So this is much more effective than having, let's say, one tool to do one protocol, a different tool to do a different, transfer. It lets you bring all those different protocols under one umbrella. We also have support for the PGP encryption, or some people refer to as GPG. That's if you need to encrypt or decrypt files with that standard we support. We can also zip and unzip files. That can be one or multiple files, and there's no size limits with that. We support the encrypted email and AS2, which is popular in the retail industry. So you got a lot of different secure protocols to choose from. Within those protocols, you can utilize the AES encryption algorithm. There's several algorithms available, but a lot of companies choose the AES algorithm because it's the strongest algorithm. You can go up to 256-bit key, which is a NIST standard. NIST stands for the National Institute of Standards and Technology. It's a federal agency. So the federal government itself uses AES encryption for a lot of their own top secret information. We do support two-factor authentication. So for instance, with SFTP, you could use a user and a password as well as a public key to authenticate against your partner. With SSL, you could use a user password as well as a client certificate and a server certificate to allow you both to authenticate each other. So several different levels of authentication are available, and we do have the key management tools built in to let you create and manage your PGP keys, your SSL certificates, and those SSH keys for your SFTP communication. So you don't have to use a different tool to work with your keys and certificates. That's all built in to the product. It is a role-based administration, which means you can have as many users as you'd like. There's no limit on the number of folks that can come in and utilize the product. And for each user, you can designate what permissions they have in the product. So you could have some users that maybe can only look at the job logs. You could have other users that can set up, let's say, new transfers. You could have other users that can maybe just only execute those transfers or projects that you've set up. So you've got different levels that you can assign. And when you do come in through the product, you can do that all through an SSL protected console. So even your administration work that you're doing within the product is encrypted. All right, just to show you a couple scenarios of common things that our customers like to do with GoAnywhere. Let's say you have some data sitting on a table or a physical file, and you wanted to extract that with SQL. You could set that up in a project to do that extraction using certain where or order by criteria. And then you could target one of these formats here. Maybe you want to build a CSV or tab delimited file. and then you could choose to encrypt that file with PGP, or you could choose zip or gzip, and then you could choose where you want to target that file. Maybe you want to put it out on an SFTP server. Let's say you have some data or some files already sitting on a file system. Maybe you're monitoring a folder on a certain server. As soon as those files appear, we can grab those files, zip or encrypt them, or you could bypass that part and send them out to, let's say, in this case, you want to go out to an FTPS server, or send them out through email, or put them on a website. So you got a lot of different directions you can go with those files, depending on your needs and how you've configured the project. You can also copy records between database servers. So maybe you have a SQL Server database and you want to do a mass or an extract of a group of records or rows from a table and pump them down into another database server. We have a lot of companies doing that for that kind of, it's more of a batch replication mode. Also, for inbound type retrievals of data, you could go out to these various servers and pull files in. And once those files come in to your system, you could have it set up to automatically unzip those files, decrypt them. You could put them onto then another file system. Maybe you want to move to Windows or a Linux server or an IBM system. And once you pull those files in, then you can choose to call a program or a shell script to process those files. So that could be all part of a seamless project within GoAnywhere. You could also choose to parse out that data. So let's say you went out to a trading partner and pulled a, let's say, an XML file. We actually let you define how the XML file is laid out, and then you can map those to data columns in your table, and we could actually then just import that data right into your table as part of the project. So a lot of different directions you can go with your data, a lot of different sources you can pull from to give you that flexibility. Now, with the latest release of GoAnywhere Director, which is 4.0, we add a lot of new capabilities to the product. Steve's going to cover a couple of those with you. Almost every feature we add to the product is customer-driven. So we really are listening to our customers, making sure that the product is the best it can be for helping them out with their needs. So we continue to solicit lots of feedback, and 4.0 really reflects that. We added a lot of new functionality through what's called expressions and functions. You can now build really sophisticated logic within your projects. I shouldn't say it's a programming language, but you can really have a lot of control over your file names. You can parse out your file names, directories. Maybe you're pulling data from databases or from files. You can manipulate that data through functions. And Steve's going to show you a couple examples of that. So it really allows you to do a lot of work right within our projects without having to shell out to call programs to do that work so much. So it's going to make your life a lot easier when working with a lot of more complex type operations. Also for job controls, we've made it easier to group a block of tasks under a single if statement. We let you repeatedly call like certain groups of logic within projects. So for instance, you can have a group of logic maybe you want to call repeatedly for each file you pull from an FTP site. Maybe you need to decrypt it and move it to a certain folder and send a notification for each file found. You could do that within a module and just repeatedly call it out. We also added some searching capabilities just to make the user experience easier, to find out where an FTP connection is being used, or let's say a website connection. So what we're finding is a lot of our customers are creating lots and lots of projects within GoAnywhere, and so we're building the tools to let them more easily manage those projects and find out where certain projects, what's being used within them. Let's say certain file names, IP addresses, and so on. Also, we've extended out the product so you can actually implement your own custom tasks within GoAnywhere. So you can, we have 55 different tasks in it now for moving files, for encrypting files, zipping them, and so on. But let's say there's a task that you really need to, let's say, maybe tie into an ERP system, or some other special type of logic that we don't provide. You could actually build your own task, and we have a user's guide on how to do that, and you could plug that right into a project and make a seamless execution, so you don't have to call out a separate program to do that work. We also added holiday calendars, so you can define your holidays within your organization and other non-working days. And so when you are using our scheduler, you can tell it what calendar to use, and we can skip those days, or we can run the transfer like the day before or the day after. It's up to you. You can configure that. All right, so let's jump into the administrator. So Steve's going to give you an overview of some of the features within our administrator. And Steve, are you there?
Yeah, I am, Bob.
Okay, so I'm going to give Steve control here, and he'll give you the live portion of the webinar here, the live demo.
Okay. I'll wait to show my screen here. All right. Should be seeing my screen here in a second, Bob. All right, so this is the dashboard to GoAnywhere Director. Like Bob was mentioning, it's a web-based product, so we have a central server located in our private network. I'm going to step through the quick links from left to right here. I have resources. This is a great way to define those server connections. Typically, a connection is going to have an IP address, user ID, password, maybe a key or certificate. So you're going to want to define that inside of a resource, and then or a project is executed, it's what we refer to as a job. So down here at the bottom, you can see how many jobs ran in the last 30 days. Maybe you want to look at what failed and why it failed, so you can go ahead and inspect that information. We do have a built-in job queue, so you can actually run transfers concurrently. You can configure the queue size as well. And then our completed jobs, this is where you're going to be able to look at, you want to find in from an auditor's perspective, what ran, who ran it, was it successful, was it failed, did it fail, who kicked it off, and information like that. The users and groups, this is your admin, typically more IT-oriented folks, setting up the product, setting up the resources, scheduling your jobs. And with that, let's go ahead and step into resources. Now we have a list of the different servers that we can connect to. For starters, we'll look at SFTP. So here we have a list of the SFTP servers that Linoma has access to. Some of these are trading partners, some of these are customers, others are internal FTP servers. So if I took a look at this GoAnywhere Services demo, this is just the name of the box. We're going to use that name later inside of a project, but we have an IP address, a port number, user ID, and password. You can encrypt the password so that it's stored encrypted inside of our database. So even if somebody were to get access to the database, they still don't get access to the passwords. Definitely nice and secure. On the connection tab, this is where you can specify a few advanced options. For instance, the connection retry attempts and interval. This isn't used only for just the initial connection, but it's also for auto-resuming. So if you're transferring large files, let's say a gigabyte, and the transfer fails, we can automatically reconnect and resume your transfers where they left off. On the proxy tab, we support multiple flavors of proxy, maybe SOCKS, HTTP, or GoAnywhere Gateway for proxying out your FTP connections. And then SSH keys, this is where you can specify the host key of the server, so you can verify the identity of the server, as well as specify a client SSH key for doing dual-factor authentication. So we have quite a few options here, and the test button is what gives us the sanity check to make sure that the server connected. So at the top here, if everything is green, we know that the resource test was successful, and then we can use it inside of a project. Go ahead and click on close. Now all the resources here on the left have that test button. If we just kind of step through network shares, this is where you connect up to SMB or CIFS network locations. We have multiple different databases defined, SQL servers, Oracle, MySQL. We can actually transfer to and from any one of these databases. We have multiple flavors of FTP, and each resource is going to look a little bit different on how you configure it depending on the resource. So you'd have SFTP, your mailboxes, your MQ servers. Now once you have all of your resources defined, then you can go into projects and start utilizing those. So let's go into projects. This is what we refer to as the Project Explorer. On the left here we have all the different folders, which a folder is useful for organizing your projects. It's also useful for permissions. So let's say you have accounting, HR, IT, multiple different departments that want to have transfers. You can have permissions on each folder so that some people can have access and some people don't. On the right side, excuse me, I got a frog in my throat. On the right side here, we have all the different projects for that folder. And let's go ahead and start off with the simple project. Let's see, SFTP put single file. So like I said, the projects are where kind of the real work is performed at the transfers. Once we step into here, this is what we refer to as the project designer. And on the left here, we have a project node, which is a P icon. The M, which is stands for module. You can think of a module kind of like a function, sub-procedure, or routine. Basically, it's going to execute the tasks sequentially from top to bottom. In this case, we only have a single task. So I'm going to go ahead and select SFTP. Inside the list here, I have the list of different servers, resources previously defined. So I can go ahead and select one of the resources. And then with that defined, you can actually get files, put basically anything with standard FTP that you may be used to, but you can go ahead and do it now over a secure connection. So in this case, we went ahead and said put. So we're going to put some files, and if I look here, I can see that we're putting a single file to this destination location. On this case, we're actually renaming it while we're putting the file. You can add more tasks just by right-clicking on any of these, like the main module, and say adding a task. But in this case, let's go ahead and execute. So that's kind of how we built this project. But if it's green, it's successful. If there was any type of problems, you would see a red error message, and then you can view the job log to find out what happens. So in this job log, this is actually in debug mode. You can specify what log level to record at. So we want to, in our case, we want to record every command sent and received from the server. This is really good for debugging down the road. You want to find out what happened. You can see every command that we sent, and you can see the overall status, which is one file was uploaded successfully. You don't necessarily need to print that detail, but it's there for you for your use. All right, with that project, that's kind of a simple transfer a single file. Let's take it a step further, and I have an FTPS download, then encrypt, then SFTP. Now in this, typically people will have like a BPM, SAP, or whatever application internally, maybe even the mainframe, and they want to connect to it using FTPS. They want to download some files. They want to encrypt them for a trading partner, and then send it to that trading partner via SFTP. Let's go ahead and take a look at this project. And on the left, you're going to see kind of similar structure at the top, but as you can see, we have way more tasks. We also have that if block that Bob was mentioning about the new features in 4.0. So now we have kind of a more visual clue here. We're going to step through here. So a temp workspace, we're going to create a temporary folder. A lot of times when you're manipulating files, data, you're going to have some files that no longer need to exist after the project. So we're going to create a temporary folder. On FTPS, we are going to select the FTPS server. Now this is over SSL. So we're going to say connect to GoAnywhere services. This could be anybody's server internally or external. We've said let's go ahead and get some files. Now when you're getting a file, like in the previous example, you can do a single file at a time, or you can go ahead and set it up to be a little bit more dynamic. In our case, I added a file set. Let me go to that file set, and your screens may be lagging a little bit, so I'll give it a second to refresh. Now in the file set, you can specify the base directory to search into. So we're going to say grab all of the files out of this folder, and we're going to say that match a particular pattern. So in this case, asterisk.txt. We can do a lot of different filters. We can say give me all the files that have modified in the last day based on any particular date. You can say any size. You can have regular expressions, wildcard patterns. So basically, we want to get a bunch of files, and we're going to go ahead and pass them into the rest of these tasks. Now let's take a look at the encrypt files, which is our PGP encryption task. And as you can see here, I just gave it a label. It's a little bit more friendly, so you guys can recognize what these tasks do. On the PGP task, you can specify your key ring, so you can have multiple different key rings. And when you're encrypting a file for a trading partner, they need to send you the public portion of their key. And so up in the Tools menu, we actually have built-in key management for PGP, SSH, and SSL. So you can import your keys, you can create new keys, you can create new certificates. But in that case, we already have a keyring with the key. So in the Action menu, there's a Add Public Key. And so we added the public key to encrypt it with the trading partner's public key. Now, as you can see here, this files, what we're doing is we're passing variables from one task to another. So most tasks, almost every task, has variables as input and can produce variables as output. You're not required to, but it allows you to be dynamic. In this case, I'm not sure if I'm downloading one file or maybe 5 files. So I'm going to pass the list of encrypted files to our SFTP put commands. And on the put commands, I can see here that PGP files is the input, and I'm going to place them into the destination directory /. Now, every one of these browse icons is this little dot is context sensitive. So if you're on an SFTP task, it's actually going to connect to the SFTP server, allow you to select your destination directory. So just know that that's there. And then on our send email, if everything's successful, we're going to go ahead and send an email. A lot of customers use this for notifying the business units. If I have some accounting data that's sent out, I may want to notify the accounting person responsible for it to let them know that the transfer took place. This person did receive the files at this particular time. So we're indicating which files, how many files, and actually which files were sent to this trading partner. Now down here at the bottom, you see another red little M icon. It's a module, and this is our error module. Every task, you can dictate error handling on a per task basis. You can also inherit from the module level. So if I click on main module and look at that on error tab, I'm going to see call error module. So what happens is if any problems exist, maybe FTPS fails, maybe the encryption fails, maybe SFTP, the network goes down. If there's any type of problem, it's going to transfer control to our error module. If I look at that, we're going to send 2 separate emails. One is going to be an email to our IT staff, and this is going to notify them that there was a problem. We're actually going to specify the project, the actual error that occurred. And you might be wondering where we're getting this information. If you click on this little var icon, we have system variables. And so on the left side here, there's information about the current job that's running. We have information about the current project that's running. So we're going to go ahead and include that in the email. We're actually going to attach the job log directly to it, so they don't even need to log into GoAnywhere to find out what happens. At the bottom here, not only do we want to send an email, I also would like to send a text message to our maybe on-call person just to let them know. Now this message is going to be a lot shorter, and almost every cell phone provider, in this case Verizon, has some type of domain name where you can just go ahead and type in your number at domain and send a text message for alerting. You go ahead and execute. Now we're going to download a series of files from an FTPS server. We're going to encrypt them, send them to an SFTP server, and then send an email notification. If I view the job log, scroll down here a little ways, we have 5 files downloaded successfully. So there's 5 files on our internal system, and we went ahead and encrypted those 5 files with PGP. And then down here at the bottom, you can see that we uploaded them to the SFTP server and then sent an email. In this case, it wasn't in debug mode, so we're not getting quite as much messages. All right, one more example project here. I'm going to step out of this. And this one's called Database to Excel to Zip and SFTP. So we're going to extract information from a database. We're going to create a file, in this case Excel format. We're going to compress it and then SFTP it to a trading partner. You can do the reverse, and I can show you projects for days, but these are just some of the common scenarios that people do. So in this case, I create a workspace, which is just that temporary folder. I have a database or an SQL task. We're actually going to run a query against this production 400 database. On our query, we've added here. This is where you can just type in the SQL if you want to. It could be insert statements, drop tables, select statements, whatever you need to. If you're not too familiar with SQL or your staff isn't, you can go ahead and use our SQL wizard. So if I click on that, we can show all of our schemas. From here, we can build our tables, columns, where clauses, and actually just generate the SQL for you, which is nice. Once this SQL runs, we're going to store all of the rows into a variable called data. So now data is going to contain 1 or more rows with multiple different columns for all this data returned here. And as you can see, I'm actually passing in a variable. This variable is what we call a project level variable. So down here, minimum salary is defined as $50,000. The nice thing about doing variables is I can set up this project once to run a report, and then I can run it multiple times and just override the variable value. So maybe I want to run a report over 75, under 75, over 100. You only have a single project generating these reports, which is really handy. Now, inside of this if statement.
Steve, could I interrupt for just a second?
Yeah, go ahead.
Now, you can use variables for a lot of other things as well. You know, like IP addresses, file names, really just about any attribute in a project could be overridden with a variable, correct?
That's correct. Yeah, anything. A lot of people pass in a file name. They'll have a generic project to say, go ahead and send this file to a trading partner, and they'll pass in the file to go ahead and send. So they'll kind of have these like routine projects, and then just pass in variables to dictate how it processes.
Right. Okay. Great.
Definitely. Now, in this case, we have data, and we have two different tasks. We support writing data to CSV, to XML, to Excel, and to fixed width files. So in this case, we're going to go ahead and write that data out to a CSV, which is just comma-separated value, and we're going to write it out to this demo.csv file. This is just to illustrate. You can write the data to one file, and you can also use that exact same data and write it to an Excel file. So you can have one input in multiple destinations. You can also have multiple destinations and store it in one destination or one final location. So here we're going to go ahead and create an Excel report with that data. With Excel, we do have the advanced options of formatting, color coding, titles, headers, footers. So we can actually generate some really nice looking reports. So you can actually color, you could do type conversions. But with your file, now once we have our Excel file, we want to go ahead and compress it with zip. Excel can get a little bit large, so let's go ahead and zip this file. And as you can see, we're starting to have multiple files, and this is why we have a workspace. So we're just going to keep working on our workspace location, which gets deleted at the end. And the rest of this was shown to you last time. So now we're going to go ahead and SFTP it and email confirm. If I execute, takes just a second here. And this is showing you how to execute interactively. There's a couple options. I'll show you the scheduler here. So inside of our job log, we're showing you the SQL that we're running. We wrote 974 records to a CSV file. We wrote the same 974 records to an Excel file. So now you have multiple options of how you want your data to look. We've actually uploaded the file to the target server and sent an email notification. So this is kind of a couple different flavors. Like Bob mentioned, there's over 55 different tasks, and you can plug tasks, as many as you want, into a single project as whatever to suit your business needs. Now, once you have your project defined, you can run them interactively, like I've been showing. You can also use our scheduler, so we take a look at that. And inside of our scheduler, we have multiple scheduled jobs. This is the only one that's currently active. So let's go ahead and click on Edit. And you specify the project. Who do you want it to run as? Because, again, we have different permissions. You may have one scheduler, but there's multiple different jobs, and you want to have permissions per job. And then on the Schedule tab, you can dictate which trigger to use. Maybe you want it minutely. Maybe you want daily, weekly, monthly. In this case, we're just going to go ahead and set daily. In 4.0, we also did enhance it with the holiday calendar, so you can specify the days of the week to run. So maybe certain holidays, maybe the Saturday and Sunday, maybe certain stock market days, you want to just go ahead and disable this job from running. So you can kind of dictate whether you want to run the previous day, the next business day, and some of those options. Now, email notification, I've shown you how you can do that, dynamically inside your project. If you don't want to do that in a project, you want to maybe simplify it, you can go ahead and just use our built-in notification from a scheduled job. So you can say, if it fails, go ahead and notify this person. If it's successful, notify this person. It's just another option you can utilize. Now, scheduler is one way to kick off a project. That automates the whole process. You can also use monitors. So sometimes you may have a system, and that system drops a file into a folder. Now, when that file exists, when a new file is created, you want to go ahead and process it. So monitors scan folders looking for new, modified, or deleted files, and when it finds something, it can kick off a project. So let's say you're monitoring a pending or an outbound folder. We can go ahead and pick up those files and automatically transfer them to your trading partners just by using these monitor functions. We also have that Run Project API that Bob was talking about. So scheduler, monitor, you can run them interactively. You can kick them off from your own schedulers, typically from the mainframe, from cron jobs, from Windows Scheduler. So however you want to, we're just storing the definition of your data transfers. Once they all run, you have your completed jobs. So once you have the projects, as you can see, these are some of the projects I was recently executing. So as a job manager, more of an auditor role, I want to come in here and find out who's working on the system. With that, Bob, I think I'll open it to Q&A if there's anything I can show before jumping over to services.
Sure. Yes, we've had a couple questions come through. One of the folks watching, they're wondering, is there a way to develop projects in like a development/test environment and then be able to promote those up to a production environment?
Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't even speak on that. We do have promotion capabilities on resources and projects. So a lot of our customers typically have a dev and a production, maybe even a test dev and production. And so once they are comfortable with their resources, with their projects, they'll go ahead and use our promote feature, which can promote it to any of their other environments, which is really handy. You can also actually export these projects. The actual project definition is in XML, which is really handy because we have on our website forum, which you guys will see here on a few more slides when Bob shows it, we have ability to, you can just import projects that we've defined on the support team. You can go ahead and import those into your environment. So yeah, working with projects, promoting them from one environment to the other, definitely possible.
Okay, great. Another question came through. They have a lot of different users they can anticipate using the product, and they want to allow them to come in through this interface to run just only certain projects that they want to authorize them to. And so they want to know, how can you allow users to come in and only be able to execute projects only in maybe certain folders?
Okay, yeah, this is the folder permission page. If you look at user permissions, you can give it down to the specific user, or you can specify on a user group basis who can see them, who can execute them, who can actually update the projects. And this is, to even get to this point, let's take a look at roles. So you can define it down to the individual users and groups. On the security menu, we have roles, and each user could be defined as one of these roles. So before they can even get to that screen, they would have to be considered a project designer. So you may have some users who are security officers, some who can just simply set up the scheduled jobs, others who are setting up your resources, and then on each one of those, let's say on Resource Manager, you can come in here and define the permissions down to the detail level of which users can actually access this particular resource or project.
Okay, very good. All right.
That's great. Should I switch over to services for a moment?
Let's jump into the GoAnywhere Services product.
Okay, so this is your enterprise, GoAnywhere Director is your enterprise, you can think of it as like an FTP client, but it's your enterprise data exchange server client. Now, GoAnywhere Services is the sister product of that. It is the server. It's going to be listening for traffic coming to you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, listening for connections. Let me go to the PowerPoint here, which I think this diagram might help a little bit before I get started. It's both on the same architecture as GoAnywhere Director. You can place GoAnywhere Services in your DMZ or inside your private network. It has remote administration. You're going to see that the UI is very similar. It's really friendly interface, so it's going to be pretty easy to configure along with GoAnywhere Director. And the core here, we have a lot of security controls because people are connecting to you. So you want to have max upload size, you want to have file size, file extension restrictions, a lot of different security controls here. And account management, you're going to want to define your user IDs and passwords that can connect to your systems. And you want to make sure that you have the appropriate permissions, the authentication, what they have access to. So that's our account management. When they do perform transfers, uploads, downloads, you may want to have triggers to real-time process. A lot of our customers are receiving PGP files, whatever the document type is. They want to go ahead and import it into a database. They want to automatically process that data. They want to send notifications to their folks. And so therefore we have triggers that monitor these events and can send off alerts. They can call projects in GoAnywhere Director. There's quite a few different actions that they can do. At the bottom here, this is the different servers that GoAnywhere Services supports. So we have an FTP server, FTPS, SFTP, HTTPS, and AS2. AS2 is built on HTTPS, but you'll see as HTTPS is what we also refer to as our web client. So down here, anybody can use any standard FTP client to connect up to us. They can even use their browser using Firefox, Chrome, Internet Explorer, and get the same type of upload and download capabilities that they're used to with a traditional FTP. So let's go ahead and take a look at that portion of the administration. So here we are. This is the dashboard to GoAnywhere Services. On the left here, we'll kind of step again through the product. We have our admin users. These are typically your more product administrators, your IT staff. They're the ones setting up the users, They're the ones setting up the services, the keys, certificates. Your web users are anybody who has access to one of the protocols listed down here. So if somebody comes in via FTP, FTPS, or SFTP, one of those protocols, it's what we refer to as a web user, typically over the internet or a trading partner. Sessions, active sessions, you want to maybe kick an active session. Maybe you want to see what they're doing, how much bytes they're currently transferring, so you can monitor the activity as it's happening in real time. Audit logs, we store all activity, all those events inside of a database. The really nice thing is it allows you to search. Traditional FTP servers, it's a nightmare when you want to find out what the problem was. With our audit logs, you're going to be able to go in and drill down to specific time frames, specific users, IP addresses, whatever you need to find out what transfers have occurred, if there was errors, and why. Triggers, this is where you do your whole events real-time processing of this user activity. Let's go ahead and take a look at web users. And I'm going to look at this user called distributor. This is the user I was actually connecting to from GoAnywhere Director. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Edit. And these are the different user IDs and passwords. The user ID in this case is distributor. We have general contact information. This is handy in case there was a problem with this person. Maybe you need to reset their password. You can go ahead and just send it to this email address. Authentication, we support Active Directory, GoAnywhere Services, generic LDAP, even the IBMI server. What that means is when we store a user ID and password, we can store it inside of GoAnywhere Services. If you optionally want to, you can authenticate against Active Directory or one of those other servers. That means when they log in, we authenticate against them with the user ID and password, and then our system will do the rest of the processing here. So down here you can see we have options for password. Maybe you want password expiration, to roll over passwords, force password change, authentication types. This is nice if you want to force dual-factor authentication. We're actually one of the few servers out there that has true certificate authentication with FTPS. Most of the time it's always a password, maybe password and a certificate, but these are how you authenticate with your servers. Most people are just using password across the board. Permissions and groups. This is where you're going to specify what protocols do they have access to. Maybe it's a secure person, they're doing highly sensitive data. You can actually enable all secure protocols but disable FTP. So it doesn't matter to you which protocol they come in as long as it's secure. So that's one option. Down here in the permissions, when they do connect to you, how do you want them to access? Can they upload, download, rename? I would recommend setting this up on a group level, because that way if you ever want to make a change to the whole group, you just set up those permissions on a group. IP filtering, we actually have 2 layers of IP filtering currently. So here you can set it up on a per user basis to whitelist or blacklist. We actually have it on the global level as well. And in the next release coming out in 2 weeks, we're going to have automatic blacklisting based on denial of service attacks, brute force attacks. So quite a few layers of IP filtering going on. It's completely optional. But on the status tab, we have whether the account is enabled. Maybe you want to automatically expire them. Without further ado, let's go ahead and log in as one of these web users. So you're kind of seeing some of the different permissions. And I'm going to jump over to Firefox, where I have set up. Now, normally you would set this up with a domain. So you'd get this a friendly domain like services.company.com, whatever you want that to be. You can actually brand this with your own title. You can have your own logo here, and this is all configurable through our interface under the global settings. So you can have your own logo, you can have your own disclaimer. So it's just going to look just like your portal, whatever you want it to be. So I'm going to go ahead and sign in with distributor. And my password here. And I'm going to start off with the basic client. Now, you could always do this through FTPS, SFTP, but HTTPS is just it's a growing trend where people want to, do more ad hoc transfers easily through their browser. Here is our basic client. It's HTML-based, which means I can do simple uploads and downloads. I can click on a file to download it. I can navigate to a folder by clicking on it. I can delete them. Your typical file manipulation, kind of like Windows Explorer. So here's the upload component where you can select files. Since we are doing just plain HTML, we don't have access to your local system, so that's why you can only select one file at a time. Now, that is also why we built the enhanced interface. Now, they are optional. You can enable one or the other, or both. In this case, I have both enabled, so I'm going to go over to our Java applet. And that little pop-up you saw is only because I have certificates in my browser, so it's asking, do I want to authenticate with a certificate. Here's that Java applet. Now, on the left side is my local file system, like my desktop, for instance. And on the remote side is GoAnywhere Services. This is your remote working directory. And so here I can access the same folder system. The nice thing about doing it here is I have the capabilities to right-click. I have the capabilities of uploading folders. I can drag and drop. I have progress bar listeners. So down here, if you watch when I upload, I click upload. Now we have 14 files. And the progress is going to be start to spin here. It's accepting the request, and now those 14 files transferred. So the enhanced interface, you can do thousands of files, folders, monitor the progress, which is really handy. So this is kind of a web client. Let's go ahead and step back over to services, the administrator. We've shown you a web user, some interaction, some activity. Now let's take a brief look at the audit logs. This is where you're going to want to find out what happened, what did that user do. Let's see here. Here is my upload. So I uploaded some files. Checksum is just verifying the integrity of the files. I can see the user. If I click on Show High Columns, this is all the data we're capturing per activity or per event. And so this is kind of nice. If you want to get this information, you want to search based on it, maybe you want to export these records to an auditor, which is really handy for compliance reasons. On each one of these events, like upload successful, we have the capability to trigger. So you want on certain uploads, let's go ahead down here, and I have quite a few defined on this demo box, but in this case, if it's an upload successful and the username equals distributor, go ahead, and the file name ends with PGP, go ahead and call this project. And I'm pretty sure that project's probably set up to decrypt that PGP file, go ahead and load it into a database. So basically the trigger is just what's kicking off that project, and it's telling it what to do. So let's look at the Action tab. I can see here's the project, and I'm actually passing in a variable like we mentioned earlier, how you can pass in the file to a project to go ahead and process. So I have one project that runs multiple times based on the variable. So we kind of talked about automation, real-time processing. We have the same certificate management and SSH key management. We have all the audit logs, database-driven users, and you can have multiple protocols, HTTPS, FTP, all through kind of a single account management. Bob, with that, was there any questions on services or maybe anything you'd like me to demonstrate just a little bit further?
Sure. Yeah, I think there is a few questions coming through, but I know maybe you could answer those while I'm showing the gateway piece, because I know we just have a few minutes left, and I want to be respectful of everyone's time. So if you wouldn't mind, I'll take control back. And then
I just signed it back to you. So
all right, great. And then if you could answer any questions that come through, Steve, in the meantime, that'd be great.
Will do.
So I did want to talk about the gateway product, because Steve was showing the GoAnywhere services, and I want to show you how you can front end with the gateway, because it's really important. A lot of companies still store a lot of information out in their DMZ. They're storing their data files for their trading partners. They're storing user credentials out there. They got their servers sitting out there, their public servers that their trading partners are connecting up to, and those once those files come in, then they have to they're kind of staged there per se, and then they have to then be copied up to the private network. So there's scripting that has to be done to move those files up and get them in the right places. So a lot of auditors now, especially for PCI and HIPAA, they don't want you to store any files out in the DMZ, even if those files are encrypted, and just because it's just so at risk in that area, because it is public facing. So what companies have done, some of them, is they said, well, we'll solve that. We'll just move our servers, our FTP or secure FTP servers into the private network, and then that way our files will be there as well, and we'll keep our DMZ clean. But the problem with that is with traditional methods, you would have to open up inbound ports through your back-end firewall, and that's also something else that auditors don't like to see, or a lot of security professionals today. They really don't want any inbound ports coming into your back-end systems. So what's the solution to that? We have a product called GoAnywhere Gateway that you could install out in your DMZ, and it will act as a reverse proxy. Now, it's actually an enhanced reverse proxy because just a standard reverse proxy will require that you open up an inbound port back to your private network. But with our enhanced proxy service in the gateway, you do not need to open up inbound ports because, and actually at startup time, a control channel will be opened up from GoAnywhere Services out to Gateway. It's kind of a command control channel, so that will stay live throughout the life of the products as they're running. And any notifications then that come in, into the gateway, let's say you have a trading partner that needs to connect up to you through SFTP or FTP or whatever, that notification will then be sent over that existing, proprietary control channel to GoAnywhere Services, which will then open up any needed data channels back to and through the gateway back to your trading partners. So it's a really neat technique that keeps those auditors happy, keeps your files out of the DMZ, keeps them in your private network, and you don't have to open up those inbound ports. Now, someone is asking, well, which IPs are going to show up in the logs coming in. You'll still see in your logging within GoAnywhere Services the trading partners IPs, that are connecting up. Now, you'll see in the log, too, that it came through the gateway, so you'll be able to identify those log entries as such. However, again, you don't have to, open up any inbound ports. You would just simply open up outbound ports from GoAnywhere Services out to the gateway only, depending on what IP that's sitting at. Okay, so something to take a look at. I know most shops already have, an FTP or secure FTP server sitting out in their network somewhere. I encourage you to really give our products a look because with that gateway, that's a really nice solution for meeting compliance requirements. And lastly, I just want to show you real quickly a new feature we're coming out with. It's an add-on module to GoAnywhere Services. We've had a lot of customers asking for what we call secure mail, so they can perform ad hoc file transfers. And what's neat about it is your employees can just go to a form right through their browser. They'll be able to send a link or multiple links out to the recipient, and then they'll be able to then grab those files through a secure HTTPS connection. So the files actually won't be attached to the email. They'll simply click on a link to grab those files. So you may have seen services like this on the web, like there's YouSendIt, Box.net, several different hosted types solutions out there. But the neat thing about this solution is you keep possession of the files. So you do not have to trust, a separate hosting company to secure those files. You're keeping them on your system, and when the recipients need to come and get those files, they're going to pass through. They can come through the gateway and come right up to your network and grab those files off your system. So this is just a quick screenshot of the composing page. So so your employee would go in here, put in the 2 email address, the subject message. They could password protect the package. They can set like an expiration on how long that package is going to be good for. They can even limit the number of downloads. So maybe you only want them to download the files 1 or 2 times or something like that. That's nice because maybe you don't want them to be able to forward that message and let other people download the files too. And then, of course, you can attach 1 or more files to the send here, and then just hit the button, and it will send out an email to all the recipients, giving them a unique link that they can click on. And now in this case, we embedded the password, but you could shut that off so the users won't be able to do that. You could just have the password shown to the screen, so they'd have to call up the recipient with the password. It's up to you how you want to configure that. And the link to the package will be a very complex link. It's made up of a UUID for security purposes. It's a randomly generated token. So that in itself will be very secure. They'll click on that. They'll take them to, in this case, we're asking for a password. So they would have to supply that at that time. And then it will take them to the SNCC screen, which will then present the files to them. And then they can just click on those files to download those down to their workstation. So again, these files will stay on your system until the trading partner's ready to pick them up, which is really nice. You don't have a separate service that you have to copy those files up to first, and risk maybe that service isn't protecting them properly. Every step along the way is audited, so you're going to get full audit trails of all the emails that are sent through the product, so you'll know when files are sent, you'll know when they're downloaded, the entire step-by-step process, which is something else that for compliance requirements will be, I think, much appreciated. So with that, just a couple other things to show you. We do support a lot of different platforms, like we had mentioned earlier. And so if you're running on a Linux box or an IBM system or Windows, Solaris, you could install our products onto just about any type of platform. They're not, very intrusive. They take little memory, little disk space, and typical installs, though, will probably use about a gig of memory is what we recommend, with about maybe 500 mega disks just to make room for the job logs, depending on how long you retain those on the system. And just a quick background on our customers. We have customers all over the world, and they're from small shops up to Fortune 500 companies. And you're more than welcome to talk to the many reference accounts and view those customer case studies and testimonials on our website. And of course, our products are available for free trials, and so you can download them, work with them in your own environment before you make a decision on, if you want to move forward or not. And with that, any other questions you think we should share with the group, Steve, or you addressing most of them?
Most of them. I think we're looking pretty good.
Okay, great. All right. Well, I thank you for your time, and again, we recorded